Welcome back to our life. We're gonna continue our journey in the life of Jamie and Cove. Let's get into it. You grabbed the large beach towel from off your bed and stuffed it into a bag. You had already packed your water bottle for your upcoming beach hangout session. The stars had aligned and somehow everyone was free today. Miranda had set things up with several bubbly phone calls between you, Cove, and Terry to find a time to hit the beach. You were hoping that this would be a fun time together. Cove sat on your windowsill and kicked one of his legs into the air idly. He already had his swimsuit on, and his towel was bundled under his arm in a misshapen ball. He'd shown up earlier that morning with a surprising amount of enthusiasm. He was chatting as you caught up to his preparation. But seriously, I couldn't find my swimsuit this morning. I looked everywhere. It had disappeared. I had no idea what I was gonna do. You could have gotten a new one somewhere. What happened to all your other swimsuits? You don't have to wear a swimsuit to be on a beach. Yeah, it completely vanished. Somehow, just like your old sand pail. You stayed quiet. You don't have to wear a swimsuit to be on a beach. What happened to all your swimsuits? You could have gotten a new one somewhere. What happened to all your other swimsuits? I know that's not your only one. Cove looked away and shrugged. I might have some laundry to do. Anyways, I don't know why it was in the bathroom when I never put it there. He gave a small smile and readjusted the towel in his arms. You now could see that it had been folded at some point, but then rolled up and carried without much care.
I'm so glad.
But I'm glad I found it. It would have been crappy to lose my favorite trunks. It was nice to see Cove so happy and comfortable in what he was wearing. You walked over to your dresser and mused about how you had picked out your own swimsuit. Your height had complicated your swimsuit shopping. Not many swimsuits were well fitted on someone who's petite, and then for the shape of your body. You were heavyset, you were chubby, you had curves. You were generally medium, you were slender, you were scrawny, you had curves, and you had noticeable muscles, you had a little muscle definition, your body was soft, your body was delicate, you had a little muscle definition. Your build was toned and firm, with muscles that were there, though slight in size. You had gained more muscle in recent years. It was clear when compared to how you were when you were younger.
Are you okay?
You alright? Oh, yeah, I was thinking about some things. What things? Just myself. And my body, really. His eyebrow rose at your admission of self-reflection. And what do you think? What do you think of who you were? You considered your identity further. You always felt sure about your gender. You wondered if your gender was really something you felt right about. You had always felt sure about your gender. Being called her was right for you. And you were well endowed. You were well endowed. You like the size you had. You like the size you had. People had a lot of their identity wrapped up in their physical form. It shaped their self-image. You were confident in yours. You were comfortable in yours. You weren't really content with yours. You hated your body. You knew you had body dysmorphia. You were confident in yours. Your body was awesome. It made you feel capable and assured. That was wonderful to you. You had pretty much always felt good in your body. It was that way through your main growing years. And now that you were an adult, you didn't see that changing anytime soon. You focused on Cove again. He smiled at you and tilted his head, a question still in his eyes. He was waiting for you to come to an answer, but before you could, you had something to say to him. What do you think about me? You like the way I look, right? What do you think about me? About how I look, I mean. Cove smirked a little, his eyes taking you in easily. Fishing for compliments, Jamie. You look great. Everyone knows that, including you, by the way, unless that's changed. You pouted, you laughed, you blushed. You didn't want a compliment. I was just asking. So what if I wanted you to compliment? You still should. You laughed. You weren't sure why you were surprised that he responded with that. Cove shook his head. His hand went up to try to unsubtly cover his smile. I was kind of worried you were so in your own head because if something was wrong. Guess not. I'm glad.
Hey.
Hey, Jamie. Cove gave a bent smile, pointing to your arms. You're looking particularly toned today. It's, he answered, not with words, but a solid okay sign, with both hands and the same cheeky smile. Cove suddenly flushed when he realized how boldly he complimented you. He stood by it, even if he was a little red. You were a little taken aback. That came out of nowhere. You glanced at yourself. You like that? Yeah. You started to flex and show off jokingly. You flirtatiously stretched. You stood there stunned. You're so sweet and fantastic. You have some very good arms yourself. Cove ducked his head and started to rub his left arm. It seemed he was much more prepared to rain praise on you than to receive it himself. He barely could respond. Thanks. You too. Oh, I already said that. Thanks. Finally, you felt that was enough of the topic for one day. You went back to your original goal before you got sidetracked. You needed to pick what you wanted to wear to the beach. You chose to wear casual clothes instead. You picked a one-piece suit. You decided to wear a two-piece bikini. You chose a two-piece tankini. You wanted to wear your wetsuit. You wanted to wear swim trunks with a top. You decided to wear a Speedo with a top. You decided to wear a two-piece bikini, two-piece tankini. Swim trunks with a top. Two-piece bikini. While you dug around in your drawers, you tried to think if there was anything else you were missing. You took sunglasses, you grabbed a hat, you brought a shawl, you grabbed your board shorts. You picked out a regular shirt to wear as well. You grabbed a full swimsuit covered up to wear as well. You took goggles. You grabbed your board shorts. With that taken care of, you held your outfit together and looked at Crepe. He was tapping his toes on the side of the wall as he waited. You vaguely wondered if he thought that was a comfortable place to sit. You hoped so, given how long he perched on it. Regardless, it was time for him to go. You weren't going to put on your beachwear with him just chilling there. I need to change. Crepe smiled, content with being kicked out. Alright. Crepe lowered himself off the window and strode past you to get to the door. He lightly brushed his fingers against your cheek when he passed by.
Bye.
I'll see you out front. Okay. When you were alone, you got undressed and put your swimwear on. You also checked your beach bag for the final time, and it seemed like you had forgotten anything. You haven't forgotten anything. You left your room and hurried down the stairs, ready to meet Crepe. You made sure to lock your front door and walked outside. Crepe stood in the road, looking down and scuffing his feet on the asphalt. When you shut your heavy door, he looked up at you and smiled. Hey. Hi. Miranda and Terry are gonna be here in not too long. Terry even texted me earlier saying she was mostly on schedule.
Well,
why don't we just head to the beach and wait for them there? We're both ready. That sounded like a good idea to you. You said as much, and Crepe shot off a quick text telling the two of them where you'd be. Crepe gave you a thumbs up after the message sent. It was a familiar path to the walk, and it wasn't long until you reached the shore. Crepe laid out his towel on the warm sand. You set up your stuff beside him and looked out into the ocean. The rolling swells hit the shore rhythmically. You all had looked out. It was a beautiful day. The sky was clear and the waves were good. It was a balmy summer day, but with a pleasant breeze to keep things comfortable. Essentially, it was perfect.
so?
Do you feel like heading into the water? Maybe just walk down the shore. Or would you want to do something here? The water sounds good. Taking a stroll would be fun. I don't mind my feet being in the water. You plan to just get some sun? Either way is fine. What would you want to do? The water sounds good. That's what I'm here for. Anyway. Crepe nodded, accepting of the plan. He kicked some sand off his towel absent-mindedly. Yeah, sounds nice. You took a deep breath and tasted the relaxing salty air. Crepe caught your eye and gave you a small smile. You chatted a little before comfortable quiet settled over the two of you, content to watch the waves as you waited for the others. Luckily, it didn't take long until you heard shouts. You turned your head to see both Miranda and Terry running straight for you. Miranda was faster, making leaps and bounds across the sand. Terry followed in her wake, laughing with her towel clutched around her shoulders and flowing like a cape. Miranda started making her jumps more theatric and more precarious as she got closer. Cove waved them on with a bright grin. You shouted a greeting. You cheered at their antics. You waved too. You laughed. You shook your head. You hoped they wouldn't fall. You cheered at their antics. Woo! The two officially arrived at Cove's and your setup, looking completely ready for an ocean adventure. They were already in their swimwear and were raring to go. Hey Terry, Miranda, welcome to our reach.
Hey!
Hi! Hello. She beamed and Miranda nodded with a smile.
Oh, yeah.
Man, I am so pumped. Yeah, I'm really glad this worked out. What have you guys been up to over here in your town? Cove, Jamie? Have we missed things? Cove blinked, then shrugged when nothing he wanted to mention came to mind. Hang on, my cat's getting into stuff. Yeah. You shrugged like Cove. You gave a vague answer. You gave her a recap over how your family was doing. What have you been up to? You gave her a recap over how your family was doing. Your moms are the same as ever for the most part, although they were definitely still adjusting to you being an adult now. Liz had asked you to take pictures of her latest makeup look the other day. There was nothing too dramatic going on right now. Terry nodded along and mentioned a couple things about her own parents. Miranda brought up her family and shared some of the wild things her older brother had done. Terry then started talking about her morning and how she'd almost overslept since she had stayed up too late last night. She bounced on her feet as she spoke. But don't worry about me being tired today. You know I ran on less back during school. Miranda filled in the group about her morning. Apparently everything had gone smoothly. She'd met up with Terry on the way here, and you knew the rest. Cove offered a suggestion to the girls. Hey, why don't we take this out to the water?
Okay.
Oh, yeah, definitely. You felt pleased that Cove remembered what you wanted to do. Sometimes he could be the thoughtful like that. Terry threw her staff down on the sand and started running for the waves. Miranda was more careful, setting down her things and waited for you and Cove. Cove tilted his shoulder to gesture over to the ocean.
All right.
I've been looking forward to this. The three of you made your way down to the shoreline together. Miranda cartwheeled and Terry clapped. Soon, all four of you were in the water. Cove swam out the furthest, while Terry instigated a splash fight. There was really a quiet moment where someone wasn't laughing. Hours passed, and the group had moved between different activities, some low-key and some more exhaustive. For you, it was another break time. You sat on your towel and sipped at some water. Your friends were hard at work, burying Terry's full body under a pile. Miranda used her arms to force up sand around Terry's sides. Cove worked on covering Terry's beach. You took another drink and closed your eyes. Eventually, a shadow passed over you, damping the light that was still notable even behind your eyelids. You checked to see Cove had joined you there. He knelt down to dig around in the pile of assorted beach stuff in the middle of everyone's towel setup and pulled out the sunscreen. He took a seat next to you. On his towel, he opened the bottle with a soft pop and began to reapply the cream. Hey. He ran his hands across his chest to work the sunscreen in, and you might have checked him out a little from the corner of your eye while still sipping some water. Want me to get your back? Oh, I'd like that. Okay, I'll do it. Thanks. You scooted up behind your boyfriend and reached a hand around his front so he could squeeze a small pile of sunscreen into your hand. You rubbed your palms together, spreading the cream out more evenly, then began applying it softly to his shoulder blades. From there, you moved to the tops of his shoulders, the nape of his neck, and down his spine. Cove was mumbling the entire time, but you couldn't make out what he said. He might not have even realized he was doing it himself. The tone of his voice and the look on his face got the message across just fine. However, he was happy. You were too. After he and you finished up, Cove let out a comfortable sigh and looked off into the distance. But then he sighed again, this time in an exaggerated, disappointed way. You wondered if he was going to sigh again, even more dramatically, if you didn't say anything. What's wrong? You honestly wondered. You wondered what it was. You raised an eyebrow. You chuckled. Oh, Cove, whatever it is, I'm sure it's gonna be okay. You don't. What's wrong? You inspected his face to see if there was anything actually distressed about him, but he still just looked like he was exaggerating. You asked anyway, since it was obvious that was what he wanted. Cove shook his head, comically despondent. His frown didn't match the sparkle in his eyes.
Don't worry about it.
I'm just becoming another jaded adult. That's all. Now you were really confused. You waited for him to continue, and his next sigh did not disappoint. It was the most ridiculously sad sigh you had ever heard. Then he smiled a little. Mermaids aren't real. What? That had not been what you were expecting, he continued. You know how much I liked mermaids as a kid? Well, merfolk as a whole. I really hoped that they were out there. I mean, the ocean's a big place, right? They could be somewhere. But the older I got, the more I had to accept it. They were just a fairy tale. He jerked his head over to the waterline and the rolling waves. They crashed against the shore and then drew back. This is a perfect beach for them. It's pretty and vast, and never too crowded. If merfolk did exist, we definitely would have met one by now. Or at least we would have heard of someone else seeing one, but nothing. He acted as though that result was a true bafflement. He let his head hang. I gotta let the dream go. You burst into laughter. That's hardly proof. It's not like this is the only beach in the world. You pretended to be shocked and disappointed. You shook your head. Wow, good for you with that revelation. That's hardly proof. It's not like this is the only beach in the world. They could still exist. As you said, the ocean is a big place. Cove chuckled a little to himself, eye tilted off into the sea, his face still low. Maybe it's for the best. Let's say a mer person did happen to wash up on shore one day. He looked at you with a fox doleful expression. I could have lost my girlfriend to their magical underwater world. Oh yeah? I totally go live under the sea with the merfolk. Even if I had the chance, I'd stay on the shore with you. I'd go with the merperson, but only if you could come with us too. Even if I had the chance, I'd stay on the shore with you. Cove's eyes widened with amazement.
Really?
You'd pick me? A plain human over a beautiful mythic merperson? He smiled and continued, very clearly joking around at this point. Are you sure that's the right call? It's a beautiful, kind merperson falls for somebody. I'm pretty positive that the sensible response isn't to turn around and say no thanks. I'm gonna stay on land with a normal guy. Are you warning me that you'd leave if you got that kind of offer? Why are you so sure I'd have to make that call? Since this is all hypothetical, why not have you be the merperson? I don't want that. I should get to be a mer creature, and then I'd invite you to the underwater world. Cove, there's no one who could ever make me leave you. Merperson or not, we're together. Oh. He flushed and fidgeted on the towel. In a desperate attempt to do something, he picked up the sunscreen bottle and he had dropped. Cove started playing with the cap, taking it on and off again. His smile seemed to grow before your eyes. I was just trying to joke around, you know. I know you were, but I wasn't. He giggled and continued to look deliriously happy. He had no way of going back to the joke. You couldn't help but feel happy at how much your words meant to him. And then you heard Miranda screech. Your attention immediately switched over to your friends. You saw that Terry had gotten impatient and shifted her legs. The walls Miranda had been meticulously building collapsed into a wet heap of sand. She surveyed the damage critically. We're gonna have to start over on that part. Do you just want to give up on this now?
No way.
No way. The burial must continue. I'll try not to move anymore. Okay, if you're sure, I'll try to fix this. Miranda started to rebury her, and Terry shot her a thumbs up. She realized too late that moving her arm was a bad idea. More of the sand on her crumbled, and Miranda put her head in her hands. Cove caught your eye and started to drag himself up. Seems like we're needed. You agreed and followed him over to the girls. Miranda nodded at you both with appreciation, and the three of you did your best to finish the job. You all worked... Okay, we're burying a body. You all worked out at a system of using just enough wet sand to help hold the rest together. With 3 people, it didn't take long for Terry to be entombed. Terry grinned massively and Miranda offered high fives. The pile was officially done. Oh yeah! Resembling the Kool-Aid Man, she kicked herself out of the ground with gusto. Sand went flying in all directions and Terry's shaped imprint was left behind. Miranda yelled again and Cove chuckled. There probably wasn't a better way to get out of it. Oh yeah! The 4 of you continued to have a good time. You went on a shell hunt. Miranda managed to find the biggest while you found the most colorful. Cove caught a tiny crab. You did a bit of everything. There were impromptu games to just soaking up each other's company. However, after a while, you all had ran out of water, drinkable water anyway. It was decided that you'd head to your or Cove's house. Things were gathered, and you started to cheerfully walk up the road. What's next? I don't have anywhere to go, so it could be whatever. Same. I guess we could keep hanging out. Terry snorted and readjusted her grip on her things. Don't sound too sure there, Cove. By this point, you could see your house. It hadn't taken you long to make the trip. The conversation continued with everyone throwing out suggestions. Are people hungry? She looked from face to face in inspection. Cove and Miranda shrugged in concert. No one was overly opposed to it. However, you weren't really starving. It wasn't quite a mealtime. We could get dessert. Miranda put a finger to her lip and thought. With a smile, her voice became more confident. Yeah, that would be fun. Terry considered it and then shot Miranda a thumbs up.
Sure.
Sounds great to me. I can definitely go for that. I think that's a good idea. But there's nothing sweet at my house. Your friend glanced at Cove and his place. He shook his head immediately. Dad doesn't have anything good either. I mean, unless you want dessert-flavored protein shakes. Ew, no. She cut in and held her hands up as if trying to ward off something evil. Cove smirked.
Not bad.
It's not that bad.
Nope.
No.
Well,
There has to be some kind of sweet shop around here. Let's look it up. Terry nodded and started to dig around in her bag. I like the way you think. Terry continued to rummage in her bag and grew increasingly frustrated. She puffed out her cheeks and knelt down, setting the bag on the ground. With both hands free, she was finally able to fish out her phone. She raised it up in triumph for a brief moment of celebration. I'll search for something good. Terry got back to her feet, hefting the bag over one arm, tapping away at her screen in the other. But she assessed Cove from top to bottom. No shirt, no shoes, no service. Cove glanced down at his bare chest, feet. Having not even registered it prior, he chuckled a little. I'll grab something. Cove moved over to his house. You looked towards yours. You decided to change as well. You felt like you'd be more comfortable in something more streetwear than beachwear. You inclined your head over the side. I'm gonna get changed too.
sure.
Go for it. We'll wait. Miranda nodded with a smile. You ran into your house. No one was home, so you just rushed to your room and dropped off your beach stuff on your bed. You threw something on over what you were wearing. You completely changed it to casual clothes. You stripped and found a suitable outfit to hang out in. You slipped it on and felt satisfied with your decision. With that, you sped back outside. Cove was already there and gathered around Terry's phone with the girls. He'd opted to just add a shirt and shoes, apparently putting in the minimum effort for surface. Hello again.
Hey.
You don't really want ice cream, do you? You didn't have a chance to answer. She kept barreling through with her words. 'Cause I'm not into that right now.
That's cool.
Don't mind her. You look nice, by the way. Terry scrolled further and then made an interested exclamation. Oh, what about this place? They sell crepes. That's something you don't see every day. Look how fancy they are. She shoved her phone into your face. It seemed like a cute shop. It didn't show any pictures of the actual building, but the food seemed good. It was one of those places that put a lot of effort into presentation, with branded wrapping for the crepes and well-applied toppings. Weird. I've never heard of it. I haven't either. Mysterious. But crepes are so good. She nodded her approval as Terry admired more of the photos. I'd go. It's not too far, but we could drive. Terry cheered at the success of a plan made, and you all walked around to Cope's car. He had to run inside once more to grab his keys. You wrote, "Wash me," in the dirt on his car. You noticed a thin coat of sand and dust on Cope's car. It had probably been a while since he'd washed it. With a smirk, you carefully wrote, "Wash me," with your finger.
Very nifty.
Good work. I wonder if he's even gonna notice. The car beeped and unlocked. Cove ran up to you with his car keys in hand. His hair slipped into his face and he brushed it back. Shotgun! She clambered into the passenger seat without hesitation. You didn't argue and climbed into the back with Miranda. Sherry activated directions on her phone map and acted as their navigator, directing Cove to the crepes. The GPS tried to get Cove to turn into a non-existent road once and wanted him to do a U-turn instead of just going a left turn. But with Terry looking at the actual path, it went smooth enough. You were led to a small stall in a parking lot rather than a full building. That explains why there hadn't been pictures on the crepery's interior and why it wasn't new to you despite living in this town your entire life. It was a completely new structure that popped up recently. There was a window you could walk up to and one for cars to drive up to. Cove parked with a laugh.
Come on.
I don't think I needed to put a shirt on for this, but I still want to try it. Let's go.
What?
Do you not trust us to eat in your car? She gestured to the drive-thru option. Cove shook his head with a snort. I'd trust some people here, maybe, but wouldn't it be more fun to actually check it out? Pressure. Everyone acknowledged his point and piled out. Terry tried to tease Cove a little, but Miranda started talking about the last time she had crepes. Apparently, they'd been a dessert explosion, topped with multiple sauces, powdered sugar, and what Miranda was pretty sure had to be cake icing. That's sweet.
So great.
Literally, it was so good, but I regretted it so much I couldn't finish it, and I really tried. You can do it this time, Randy. There were some laughs. When you got up to the menu, you realized that there were more than just crepes. There were definitely crepes, mini crepes. However, the stall also had a lot of different drinks as well. Teas, smoothies, milkshakes. Jackpot! She grinned and held out her fist for a fist bump. Miranda high-fived it. The two stared at the awkward, vaguely turkey-shaped hand configuration they had made and then slowly put their hands down. Cove's mouth twitched in a smile. You stepped up to the order first. You glanced back at the menu. You ordered a crepe, you ordered a drink, you ordered a crepe and a drink. You ordered a crepe and a drink. Hello, I'd like to get a crepe and a drink, please. There was a woman who looked a little older than you taking the orders. She smiled back at you, ready to hear the specifics of your purchase. For the crepe itself, you wanted chocolate. For the filling and toppings, you picked, oh dear Lord, whipped cream, cream cheese, powdered sugar, mixed berries, banana slices, strawberries, and that was all. After you picked the size, you were asked what you wanted to drink. You ordered a chocolate milkshake. You could also add a mix in or toppings for the drink. Whipped cream, caramel syrup. That was all. You paid and stepped aside to let your friends order. Cole got a lemon crepe with a powdered sugar on top and the mixed berries. He also got a plain strawberry smoothie. Terry went crazy with toppings. Although she ordered a plain crepe, she had it smothered with whipped cream, cream cheese, chocolate chips, chocolate syrup, and bananas. Miranda opted for a frappe with caramel syrup and condensed milk. The four of you stood off to the side as you waited for your treats. I heard what you ordered, Jamie. Glad I'm not the only one to go for a drink and a crepe. I couldn't pick just one. Why not? Exactly. It's gonna be good. Jamie, man. Your crepe is gonna rock. High five for topping appreciation. She held her hand out expectantly. You gave her a high five. You hit her hand with a satisfying smack. Order for Jamie. Oh, I've got to get that. You grabbed your order. The others didn't take much time after that. With the goods collected, everyone admired their treats. Terry dug right into hers, and Miranda gave hers a tentative sip. Terry nodded acceptingly with her mouth completely full. Miranda tilted the frappe over to her with a grin. Terry sipped it and clearly loved it. She raised her crepe over to Miranda. You could tell that there was an intent to make it look nice, but with all the assorted toppings piled on, only so much could be done. Miranda took a huge bite with gusto, sighed happily. Terry seemed satisfied and took another slurp of Miranda's drink. They had both only gotten one thing, probably because they knew they'd end up sharing. Cove, do you want to share ours? Terry, Miranda, can I join the sharing? You offered to share your order with everyone. You said nothing and started consuming. Cove, do you want to share ours? His face lit up with excitement and he passed you his crepe.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. You exchanged treats and took a chomp on the lemon crepe. It was light, with the sourness from the lemon and the sweetness from the syrupy berry mix. The smoothie was finely blended with the occasional chunk of strawberry. Cove seemed to enjoy his taste, and then you swapped back. He smiled as he took a loud sip from his smoothie. Thanks. You always get good stuff. With that, Cove started to eat his treats in earnest. You saw him take a huge gulp of his smoothie, and then, without swallowing, he added a bite of his lemon crepe. Cove? Terry tore off a piece of her crepe and held it out to Cove.
So?
Care to make a trade? Sure. Instead of continuing to loiter in the parking lot, the four of you started to walk down the sidewalk. There was a lot of sharing going on, with crepe bits and toppings being passed around. You wouldn't have been surprised if Terry ended up drinking more frappe than Miranda did. You kept going down the way, eating, drinking, and chatting. You hadn't realized just how far the group had wandered until you ended up at the now leaving sign. Apparently, you were about to just walk right out into the middle of nowhere. Terry took her mouth off of Miranda's straw and stopped sipping the frappe. Impossible. Preposterous. How are we already at the end? I always forgot how tiny this town really is. Cope chuckled a little and swallowed a chunk of Terry's crepe.
I guess.
It kinda is, huh? It didn't feel that small when we were growing up. It definitely felt bigger then. It always seemed like there wasn't much here. There are tinier places out there. You guys are lucky to live in decent-sized cities. He quietly nodded along. It always seemed like there wasn't much here. It definitely felt bigger then. There was a time when Sunset Bird had felt huge. It seemed as endless as the ocean. There was always some street you hadn't wandered down, something new for the tourists. But now, you had realized it was just a pond in this big, big world. Seeing the definite end only reinforced this. Here was the boundary that proved your hometown could be walked out of with ease. I guess this means we should probably head back. One doesn't just walk into nowhere land. We're not only one, Terry. There's four of us. Terry scrunched up her face, not wanting to acknowledge the bad joke. She decided to ignore it. It stinks having to go all the way back. Yeah, but it's not like there's anything out that direction. And if we did keep going forward, it'd be an even longer trip home. You stared off into the stretch of road as Cove agreed that he didn't want to go out any further. Can we take a break here first before we turn around? We've been walking for a while and someone finished my drink. Right on cue, Terry Lely sucked air from the straw. It was so good. Miranda looked at her, but Terry remained unrepentant. In the end, though, it was agreed to hang around the sign before heading back to the car. It didn't take long to finish the rest of the food and drinks. Everyone gathered up the trash and stuffed it into bags and pockets for now. The group relaxed on the grass, keeping account of all the cars that drove past. It was not a high number. 14. The newest passing car drove into town from somewhere outside. But as the vehicle came by, it slowed down and you watched as it ultimately rolled into a complete stop. The black car parked right by the now leaving sign. Everyone exchanged a baffled look. But then the tinted window rolled down and the driver peered out. As soon as you saw his hair, you recognized him. No one else knew presented themselves so distinctly. Hey, neighbors! Cove openly sighed when he recognized him. Afterwards, sucking sulkily at the straw of his long emptied drink. You waved at him. Hi. You just wondered what he was doing here. You wished he hadn't stopped to chat. You smiled and were excited to see him. You wished he hadn't stopped to chat. In one word, you found this awkward. Why would he just stop on the side of the road? You barely knew him, and Cope didn't exactly give Baxter positive signals either. Maybe he was really bored or lonely. Even then, you wished that he just kept driving. And you thought about the odd picture this made. A fancy black car pulled over to the top to talk to a group of teens, mostly still in beachwear. Miranda was incredibly confused and shrank back to watch. Terry tilted her head in an unspoken question. Cove made a quick gesture, pointing towards Baxter, and a light bulb went off for Terry.
All right.
Ah, that's the new person in the condo, the bee-man, right? Yeah, Baxter. Oh, I wasn't sure if I'd ever actually see him. Her voice was quiet. Miranda usually got shy around new people. Terry was quite the opposite. Incredible! This is perfect. Terry hopped up from the grass and ran to Baxter's car, all full of excitement behind her. Miranda picked herself up and dusted imaginary dirt off her clothes. She sent a searching look to you and Cove, to which Cove shrugged. Miranda nodded and, with clenched fists, hesitantly followed Terry. Terry bent down to talk to Baxter through his window. She blasted through introductions, with Miranda putting in a shy wave. Cove looked at you. He still clearly had no intention of going over. You stayed with Cove. You went over to Baxter. You encouraged Cove to come. You stayed with Cove. When Cove realized you were planning to stay with him, he smiled a little. Cove shuffled closer and dropped his voice. Honestly, I still find it kind of hard to talk to the guy. I get it. I feel the exact same way. I know he can still see. You know he can still see you, right? He knows you're here. You kept quiet and got comfortable. I get it. Yeah, I thought you would. Cove sighed and ran a hand through his hair. He looked at you with a wry expression on his face. I'm glad you do, 'cause I don't think I could explain it if you asked me to. He tries to be considerate, but it doesn't totally land for me. Sometimes people don't hit it off. The two of you waited for the others to finish up. You couldn't hear what they were saying from there. You could see from body language that Terry was up to something and Miranda didn't like it. You and your neighbor exchanged a look. After Miranda seemed to calm down slightly, Terry turned around to wave at you. She put her hands to her face to make the megaphone. Come on, get over here. Baxter is giving us a ride. Cove's mouth popped open in surprise, then his lips curled together in clear displeasure.
All right.
I should have known. She's always pulling something. He took a slow breath and then shrugged. Guess we have to get over there. It's gonna be really awkward now, since he knows we tried not talking to him. Yeah, we can't hide over here forever. You followed him over to the car, apparently about to get a lift. You were just happy to get a ride. You were kind of annoyed that Terry did this. You felt uncomfortable to be getting a ride from Baxter. You were kind of annoyed that Terry did this. You felt uncomfortable. You didn't know Baxter well enough to feel safe with him driving. Sure, you doubted he was going to kidnap everyone or something. Your group had the numbers and you were pretty sure you could all take him in a fight, but it still felt awkward. It felt weird. You weren't in the habit of climbing into random people's cars. It always felt awkward. The seats, the smells, and everyone's car etiquette were always different. You felt stressed out that Terry had put this on you. You arrived at the driver's side car window, and Baxter smiled welcomely. Hello. Hey. Cove greeted him mildly, his expression cautious. Howdy, Baxter. Howdy, Baxter. Alrighty, Plan made. Let's hop in. You hesitantly opened the back door and slipped inside. The car was clean and smelled of air freshener. You stared at Cove for reassurance as you scooted all the way to the other side. Cove squeezed into the middle after you. Miranda took the last seat in the back, and you all tried to awkwardly buckle up. Where back seats really made for 3 adults, it honestly didn't seem like it. Terry gladly took the shotgun seats and had all the room she wanted.
Does that sound alright?
Welcome to my vehicle. I hope everyone is comfortable. And if someone could point me in the right direction, we can be on our way. Terry went back to the navigator mode and outlined their journey. It was basically a straight line with one turn at the end into the parking lot. Baxter nodded from up in the driver's seat and pulled back into the road. Luckily, the street was still dead empty. It took no time at all for Baxter to park right next to Cove's car. There wasn't even enough time for a proper conversation to start. The occupants didn't seem to mind. There were smiles all around when Baxter parked next to Cove's car. Woo! Miranda clapped quietly as Terry cheered. Cove chuckled nervously. You were relieved you had made it. The trip had gone without issue. Baxter hadn't sped excessively or stopped for another set of teenagers in swimsuits. He'd just driven down the road and now you were here. You sighed a breath of relief and put your hand on the door handle. We've arrived. That was easy. Terry flung open her door and climbed out. Thanks. Everyone else exited the car as well. The group thanked Baxter with varying degrees of enthusiasm. Baxter himself got out too. Everyone congregated again in front of Baxter's and Cove's cars. Cove looked at the back of his and frowned. He finally discovered "They washed me" you'd put on it. Huh. I wonder who did that. You snickered, along with Miranda, who realized you'd been caught. It's a mystery. Right. Terry bounced over to Baxter and offered her hand for a handshake. He accepted it easily, with a charming grin. You're a pal. You're too kind. It was no trouble whatsoever. I'll be keeping this car all this summer. If it suits you, you're welcome to take my number and give me a ring whenever you're in need of another ride. And that goes for everyone here. I have a car. Terry busted into laughter and Miranda fidgeted. She did not know what to do with that. Baxter really went fast, didn't he? He noticed her discomfort and smiled with a soft tilt of the head. I'd be happy to help again, but that's the only reason I offered. If you don't need it, you can pass on it. You stayed silent. When her giggles subsided, Terry put a hand to her chin with brows furrowed. I wonder, would that option be available right now? You could valet us somewhere cool.
What?
What? Cove was taken aback. He put a hand on the hood of his car. Weren't we going back to the neighborhood? Wasn't Baxter going back to the neighborhood too? Why would we go somewhere else? Because we can. Miranda squirmed nervously and then committed to piping up.
Maybe?
We could go to the park near my place. It's a really nice place to hang out. You and Co shared a look. The big park was pretty nice. Let's do it! Baxter tapped the side of his face and thought,
It's doable.
that sounds doable. He glanced at Cove and then switched focus to you. Well, we have 2 cars. If some people want to go to the park, I could still take the others home. But if everyone's going, it wouldn't make sense for me not to. You decide to go to the neighborhood with Cove. You would rather go back for now. You let the group know. Both girls frowned. Neither wanted to leave you or Cope behind. Terry especially looked troubled and started bouncing in place.
No.
Today is all about us hanging out. We can't just bail. Miranda nodded and bit her lip. We don't have to go to the park. Going back to the neighborhood was plenty of appeal. It could prove to be the better idea. Cope winced and shook his head.
Don't worry about it.
No, really, it's fine. We've done plenty of hanging out today. If you want to go to the park, you should. You don't have to worry about us. Go have fun with Baxter. Okay. She didn't sound too thrilled, and Miranda patted her on the shoulder.
Okay.
Guess we'll see you later then. Probably. Cove smiled, and she rolled her eyes at his wishy-washy answer. He knew you'd be seeing them again. Everyone finished saying their goodbyes, and the 3 climbed into Baxter's car. Terry started to shout back and startled Baxter slightly. Miranda laughed and waved back. Terry rolled down the window. See ya! Bye, Terry. Bye, Miranda. Then Baxter rolled down his own window.
See you.
Have a safe journey back. I'll see you around the neighborhood. Baxter started to pull out of the parking lot, and Cove waved them all, stepping forward as they pulled away. Then it was just you and Cove left in the parking lot. He rubbed his hands together for a moment and unlocked his car. You got into the shotgun seat this time, and Cove took his place at the wheel. He put his key in the ignition and turned to you. I'm surprised you didn't want to go. I was ready to go back. Thank you for giving me an out. You didn't respond to that. Actually, I wanted to go so that you had a reason to leave. Cove smiled, satisfied, and finally turned his key to start the car. The car ride back passed quickly. They were all familiar roads you'd seen before. Soon you'd return to the comfort of your own neighborhood. Cove pulled in and parked. He shut off his car. Then you both got out to stand in the road. I guess that's it. Thanks for the ride, Cove. I'll see you later. It was fun. Pleasant farewells given, you walked to your front door. Time ticked by as the sun started to set. Orange gold light streamed in through the windows. You could tell the weather was still really nice out there. Your attention was taken by your phone. You saw it right away as your phone was in your hand. Random personalized text tone sounded. You had different text tones for almost everyone important in your life. You thought Miranda's was especially fitting. It played and you snatched it up to check your phone. Hi Jamie, we're gonna see fireworks. Do you want to come? Oh, and Terry texted Cope. He said he'll be there. How did their trip start at hanging out in the park and end at finding some previously unknown fireworks spectacle? It was definitely news to you. Fireworks? Fireworks sounded awesome. You sent your response with a tap of your finger. That was something you couldn't miss. Miranda sent back a cherry smiley face. Not even 5 seconds later, then you got a yay, and she sent another message that told you that Cove would be out at his car soon. You quickly got yourself ready and headed out into the world once more. On the way, you sent a message to Cove that you were coming. He texted that he was already outside. Just as promised, Cope was waiting by his car. He hadn't bothered to change at all. He was quite comfortable going around in swim shorts. He slipped his phone into his pocket and waved you over without needing to say a thing. You got into the shotgun seat. You noticed that the exterior of his car was no longer coated with dust. He must have washed it in the past few hours. Direct action. Cope looked over to you from the driver's side and smirked as he started up the car. Here we go again. Yep. He pulled out into the road and raced towards the city as the sun continued to sink below the horizon. When the city lights sparkled around you, Cope started looking for the parking spot. It had been a smooth drive, but unfortunately finding parking was a task. You tried to text Miranda to see where they had parked, but she admitted that there hadn't been any openings around there. They had gotten lucky with one single spot. Cope had to drive around a few blocks, but finally you spotted something. He pulled in and parked, feeling just as triumphant as he'd won an actual prize. Terry sent you a text saying to hurry up and get to the waterfront. Miranda attached a helpful picture of where they were. You pointed the way to Cove, and the two of you jogged around a bend and then down the brick-lined walkway. Eventually you saw 3 silhouettes in the distance. They started to wave and yell. One of them jumped in place with her arms going back and forth. It had to be your friends. You rushed over to them. Miranda and Terry ran up to meet you halfway, with faces full of smiles.
Hey!
We missed you. Buddies! I knew the day wasn't over for us. Hey. Hi. Guess you were right. I'm happy we made it. Baxter had stepped up at some point too. He ran a hand through his hair, trying not to interrupt the reunion. Hello. Hey. Cole gave him a nod. With the band back together, the group walked back to the area where Baxter, Miranda, and Terry had originally set up at. It was a quiet, open area on the waterfront. Cole let out a relieved sigh after things calmed down. So do we miss anything?
Nah.
Nah, you're good. Nothing's happened yet. We think it's gonna start really soon though. What are these fireworks even for? Well, she smiled a big grin at Miranda. Randy talked about watching fireworks at the park, and that reminded me about how there's this big company having an event tonight. I heard they were gonna have fireworks. There's no way we were ever getting into that party, but she put a finger up and her smile turned devious. I'm positive we'll still be able to see the fireworks from here. They can't hide explosions in the sky from the public. That's ridiculous. You suddenly wondered how Terry had convinced Cope to come without prior explanation. He was utterly stunned that this was the source of the fireworks. To be fair, you hadn't asked Miranda for the details either. Cope scratched his head in defeat. I guess we're already here. It's kind of too late now. You bet your wet blanket is too late. She shook her head with exasperation, but let him off with minimal teasing. You felt excited. The spontaneity of the whole thing, combined with an amazement of fireworks, was a recipe for you to be bursting with anticipation. It couldn't start soon enough. Terry led Miranda to sit down on the oval slabs along the path. Miranda took a seat and began tapping her knees together as she waited. Terry, meanwhile, crouched more than sat. Baxter flashed an unreadable smile at Coe and you, and then took a spot next to the girls. Coe seemed surprised and looked over his shoulder to watch him begin to chat with Terry. I guess he's trying not to upset us. Whether he left to make Cove and you more comfortable, wanted to escape potential awkwardness, or if he really had just hit it off with the girls earlier was anyone's guess. That's nice. Something seemed to strike Cove as he tried unsuccessfully to hide a smile. Most of us are in swimsuits. Wearing beachwear in the middle of the city, in the dark, while waiting for a fireworks show, was clearly the joke of the day for him. Cove snorted once, and then looked back up at the sky. A flash lit up the sky with a brilliant green. Your eyes grew off the building in the distance and silently watched with bated breath. You heard a second boom and a red firework lit up the night. Woo! The show's starting! It's so pretty! They came running over to get closer, positively beaming. Terry pressed herself to the waterfront fence, getting as close as physically possible without just going swimming again. Baxter followed a few steps behind, his mouth hung open at the sight for a moment until he caught himself and once again shifted to pleasantly composed. More fireworks went off, shooting out hundreds of tiny sparkling lights. The colors stood out starkly against the dark of the night. The biggest ones washed your surrounding with your hue, turning your world blue, then red, and then golden.
Welcome.
Did I deliver? Or did I deliver? Miranda's eyes glittered, and she lightly bumped Terry with her hip. Good job. Terry stumbled at the friendly nudge, but was pleased with the compliment. She grinned back. Miranda lightly swung her hips the opposite way to give you a bump as well. It was friendly and soft. We did it! You smiled at her and nodded. You were pleased that you hadn't missed any of the show after all. You were glad that everyone seemed to be having a good time. You were uncomfortable with how near it was. You were pleased that you hadn't missed any of the show after all. Despite how unorthodox the impromptu fireworks plan had been, you were ecstatic it worked out. Luckily, you arrived in time, and it was shaping up to be a particularly colorful fireworks show. The rest of the group huddled around the railing to take in the show as closely as possible. Miranda stood close by. Terry's hands gripped the top. Cole laid his arms across it while leaning forward, and Baxter rested his elbows on the rail, putting his back towards the fireworks. He seemed to have more fun watching the others than the actual show. Ooh! She pointed at a golden firework and beamed. Ah, that's so cool. Terry held up a hand for a high five and Miranda obliged her. Terry whooped and shot you a smile. What color do you think the next one will be? Without giving Baxter a glance, Cope answered immediately. Green? It was orange. Baxter chuckled, but wasn't interested in calling Cope out for being wrong. Is that your favorite color? Green? It's one of them. I think that's nice. It matches you. And it's yours. And is yours black? That's one of them. Cove smirked just a little and left the conversation there. You stood next to Cove. Cove looked away from the fireworks and grinned at you. He was glad to be spending time with you and tilted his head at his particularly multicolored firework above. I think that's been my favorite so far. He shot you another look and nodded. Wanted you to move up closer in front of him. You could see the night's lights reflected on the water. You took a moment to watch him, and the fireworks reflected in his eyes. Cope grinned like a kid. You leaned your head against Cove. You cuddled against Cove's chest. You pressed yourself against his chest and snuggled into him. He readjusted his position and then wrapped his arms around you, holding you close. He rested his chin on the top of your head comfortably. You let yourself relax against him, and he continued to watch the fireworks above. Cove's gaze drifted from the show of his dazzling lights straight at you, and he sighed dreamily. You didn't know when you'd last seen him so blissful. The spectacle continued to up the ante by bringing more fireworks out at a time. The colors danced across the sky and reflected over the water. You reached out a hand and watched as it was tinted green while a big boom sounded. Fireworks were a normal summer tradition, but this was admittedly an unconventional approach. Showing up in the city last minute to watch a display from a technically private event, that made this feel special in a way that just planning to go to a public fireworks show never would. Terry's idea may not have left you with a lot of time to prepare, but it sure led to a unique situation. It was clear this was an unforgettable night. As the finale sounded, blazing the sky with an unbelievable beauty, you remembered thinking that there might never be a night exactly like this once again. Not for the rest of your life. You planned to hold on to the feelings you had in that moment for as long as you could. I'm going to save there. And I'm going to end the episode there. Thank you all for watching. And I hope you all have a great day. Peace out. Bye-bye.